Charlotte Flair, one of the most polarizing figures in professional wrestling, recently made a surprising admission that has sparked widespread discussion among fans and analysts alike. In a candid interview with People magazine, conducted before WrestleMania 41 but released afterward, Flair revealed her desire to tap into more of her authentic self on television, admitting that her current character, Charlotte, lacks relatability. This revelation has prompted a deeper examination of her career, her persona, and her place in WWE's ever-evolving landscape. As someone who has long admired Flair's in-ring prowess while remaining critical of certain aspects of her presentation, I find this admission both intriguing and potentially risky. Let's unpack why this statement matters, how it reflects on her career, and what it could mean for her future in WWE. Charlotte Flair, born Ashley Elizabeth Flair, is undeniably one of the most accomplished wrestlers in WWE history. With 14 or 15 championship reigns, depending on how you count them, she's on a trajectory to potentially surpass John Cena's record of 17 world titles. Her athleticism, technical skill, and ability to deliver in high-stakes matches have cemented her as a cornerstone of WWE's women's division. Whether it's her iconic matches against Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, or Rhea Ripley, Flair has consistently proven she can hang with the best. As a heel, she's particularly effective, exuding arrogance and entitlement that make her a natural antagonist. Her larger-than-life persona, heavily influenced by her father, the legendary Ric Flair, has carried her to the top of the industry. Yet, despite her accolades, Flair remains a divisive figure, and her recent comments shed light on why that might be. In the People magazine interview, Flair expressed a desire to move away from the unrelatable Charlotte character and incorporate more of her real self, Ashley, into her on-screen persona. She acknowledged that the character she's crafted, polished, regal, and often aloof, doesn't resonate with audiences on a personal level. This admission is striking because it suggests a level of self-awareness that fans don't always associate with Flair. For years, critics, including myself, have argued that while Flair excels as a heel, her babyface runs often fall flat. As a fan, I've always respected her in-ring work and her ability to elevate feuds, but I've struggled to connect with her as a sympathetic, likable figure. Her babyface promos can feel forced, and her larger-than-life aura sometimes makes it difficult for audiences to see her as an underdog or a relatable hero. To understand why Flair's character struggles with relatability, it's worth examining the nature of professional wrestling and what makes certain performers connect with fans. Wrestling thrives on larger-than-life characters who embody exaggerated traits or archetypes. Think of Stone Cold Steve Austin, whose rebellious, anti-establishment persona allowed fans to live vicariously through his defiance. Or consider John Cena, whose unwavering optimism and work ethic made him a polarizing but undeniably compelling babyface. These characters, while not always relatable in a literal sense, tapped into universal emotions: anger, hope, perseverance, that resonated with audiences. Flair's queen persona, by contrast, is built on dominance and superiority. She's presented as a near unbeatable force, someone who's always in control. While this works beautifully for a heel, it's harder to translate into a babyface role, where vulnerability and relatability are often key. Flair's admission that her character isn't relatable raises an important question: is relatability necessary for success in wrestling? The answer, as with most things in wrestling, is complicated. Some of the biggest stars in history, Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Triple H, weren't necessarily relatable in a conventional sense. They were larger-than-life figures who captivated audiences with their charisma and presence. Flair, in many ways, fits this mold. Her entrance, complete with elaborate robes and pyro, screams superstar. Her in-ring style, a blend of power and finesse, sets her apart as one of the best. Yet, unlike those icons, Flair hasn't consistently found a way to make fans root for her as a hero. When she's a heel, fans love to hate her. When she's a babyface, they often seem indifferent or even hostile. This disconnect was evident at WrestleMania 41, where Flair faced Tiffany Stratton for the Women's Championship. Leading up to the event, Flair's story was one of redemption. After suffering a devastating injury, a torn ACL, MCL, and meniscus, she spent a year on the sidelines. Her return at the Royal Rumble was triumphant, as she won the match and earned a title shot of her choosing. Fans expected her to challenge Stratton, who had been a dominant champion, and many assumed Flair would walk out of WrestleMania with the belt. After all, WWE has a history of pushing Flair in big moments, especially at WrestleMania. Her resume includes victories over Asuka, Ronda Rousey, and others on wrestling's biggest stage. Given her track record and the company's apparent desire to position her as a record-breaking champion, a title win seemed like a safe bet. But WWE threw a curveball. In a decision that shocked fans, including myself, Stratton retained the championship. Flair, despite getting the better of Stratton in much of the build-up, came up short. This outcome defied expectations and sparked debate about WWE's creative direction. For years, critics have accused WWE of overpushing Flair, arguing that her frequent title reigns and prominent storylines come at the expense of other talented women. Under Vince McMahon's regime, Flair was often portrayed as invincible, a decision that alienated some fans. Even under Triple H's creative leadership, which has been praised for its long-term storytelling, Flair remains a focal point of the women's division. Her loss to Stratton, then, felt like a departure from the norm, a sign that WWE might be rethinking how they present her. The WrestleMania outcome ties directly into Flair's comments about relatability. By losing to Stratton, Flair was positioned as vulnerable, a rare occurrence for her character. This could be a stepping stone toward a more humanized version of Charlotte, one that aligns with her desire to bring more of Ashley to the forefront. But is this the right move? As a fan, I'm skeptical. Wrestling thrives on spectacle, and Flair's larger-than-life persona is a big part of what makes her special. If she pivots too far toward being relatable, she risks diluting what sets her apart. Imagine if Ric Flair had abandoned the nature boy gimmick to become a more grounded, everyday character named Richard Flair. Fans wouldn't have embraced it. They wanted the limousine-riding, jet-flying showman, not a toned-down version of him. That said, Flair's comments suggest she's aware of her limitations and eager to evolve. At 40 years old, with over a decade in WWE, she's at a crossroads. Her recent injury and time away from the ring may have given her perspective on her career and her legacy. It's possible she feels stale or disconnected from the audience, especially after spending much of her recent run as a babyface, a role that, as I've noted, doesn't suit her as well as being a heel. Flair's best work has always come when she's leaned into her arrogance and ruthlessness. Her feuds with Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks, for example, were electric because she played the villain so convincingly. Fans booed her not out of disdain for her talent but because she was so good at making them hate her. If Flair is serious about tapping into her real self, she'll need to strike a delicate balance. She can't abandon the queen persona entirely, it's too integral to her identity, but she could incorporate elements of vulnerability or authenticity to make her character more dynamic. For example, she could acknowledge her struggles with being liked or her fear of fading relevance as she ages. These are universal themes that could resonate with fans without sacrificing her larger-than-life aura. The key is to avoid coming across as inauthentic or pandering, which could alienate her audience further. Looking ahead, it's unclear where WWE will take Flair's character. She was absent from the SmackDown following WrestleMania, and there's speculation she might be taking time off or transitioning into a new storyline. Meanwhile, Tiffany Stratton appears to be moving into a feud with Nia Jax, leaving Flair's immediate future uncertain. Whatever direction WWE chooses, they'd be wise to lean into Flair's strengths as a heel. While she's capable of playing a babyface, her ability to generate heat is unmatched. Fans may not always like her, but they can't take their eyes off her, and that's the mark of a true star. In the end, Charlotte Flair's admission about her character's lack of relatability is a bold acknowledgement of her challenges as a performer. It's a risky move to consider redefining a persona that's carried her to the top, but it's also a sign of her willingness to grow. Whether she can find a way to blend Ashley's authenticity with Charlotte's grandeur remains to be seen. For now, fans are left to debate, is she better as a heel or a babyface? Should she stick with what's worked or take a chance on something new? One thing's for sure, Charlotte Flair will continue to spark conversation, just as she always has.